All right, let's reel it back to the 2025 class here, Brian. Couple of names to be wary of, including a decommitment here that might translate into the guy that we're going to talk about first, and that's Ziyare Addison, four-star offensive lineman, class of 2025. Your latest on him as Oregon's gone after him is what?
Well, he told me that Clemson is, I'll just look at the text here he sent me, but Clemson is no longer like a school that was in his top group. It was Florida State, Clemson, Penn State, and Oregon. One of the weirdest lists ever. But Zaire's that guy. He kind of beats to his own drum. It's interesting. He said UCLA, Georgia, and Florida are now more in it. Take out Clemson. He has a very diverse list. Oregon was a trip that he made here recently. Oregon's definitely very much still in it. And it's a kid that Oregon has prioritized for a long time. He's from just outside of Tampa. Known him very well for quite a while. Pure left tackle candidate and a kid that could play pretty early.
What do you like about him, and why do you think Oregon is going after him amidst, plenty of pressure from other schools?
He's got offers from 40-plus schools, so I mean, he's just that guy. First off, left tackles are rare. Basketball kid coming up, played DN until sophomore year of high school, I believe. He's just got tremendous feet. He's still got a ways to go with technique, but he's gotten so much better in the last year, it's not even funny. And he works with one of the best trainers in the state of Florida, buddy of mine, and he's just continuing to get better. And he's got a good relationship with Oregon, my buddy, the trainer, and they call him all the time asking about Ziyare. I know that firsthand. So Oregon's just a trendy school with a lot of kids in Florida for whatever reason. I mean, Dallas Wilson, another Tampa kid, committed, lives right down the road from Ziyare Addison. I don't know what it is about Tampa and Oregon. You wouldn't think they'd have much in common, but apparently I'm wrong. And he's told me multiple times he liked him. He had another good visit. They're right in the mix. They very well could hit it.
So Addison is a name that I bring up because Oregon's first decommitment in the 2025 cycle is an offensive lineman, also from the state of Florida. And, I didn't feel like Oregon was full up. I mean, the recruiting class is not even close to being full up, and we'll get to that here in a couple minutes. But Chavez, Sandman, Thompson, as he's known, decommits from the Ducks. Is there anything major to make of this on your end?
It's recruiting. I mean, Florida kids are about as consistent as a tornado in what direction they're going. So I wouldn't put any stock in that. He's a really good player. He's a kid from O'Galley High School over in Melbourne, if I remember correctly. Yeah, he's a good player. I've seen him since he was a sophomore. But it's just recruiting, man. You're going to lose 2 or 3 kids every year. I wouldn't worry about it too much.
Yeah, and when he decommitted, the first thought I had was, well, that's too bad because I thought he, had plenty of promise there. But then I see Addison's name kind of pop up on Oregon's radar, and I just wonder if those two things are correlated, right? Is that a conversation between Alik Terry and Sandman of like, hey, we're going after this guy too, and maybe he doesn't like that? How do those sorts of conversations go down when you see that almost trade-off of like, yeah, this guy's going to decommit, but we're ratcheting up our efforts to get this guy over here?
In today's world, you got to have a backup plan for everything. Sandman's going to play interior O-line, though. Zaire's outside. So I don't think they cross very much. Okay. But at the same time, sometimes kids get mad when somebody commits because they don't want to share playing time. It does happen a lot. They don't admit it, but I find out from behind closed doors, so-and-so wanted to be the only tight end or only corner, whatever. That stuff happens a lot. In this case, I think it's just a kid from Florida, not sure that he wants to go all the way to Oregon. That's, I'm sure the mom's probably not thrilled about the flight, but it is what it is. That's about all. Zaire's kind of a different guy. He beats to his own drum. Distance won't matter to him at all. So I just think that it's just unique recruitments. That's about it.
Yeah, and I don't think it's, a bad sign or anything, but Oregon's 2025 class is pretty small right now relative to, some other classes. No one's class is anywhere close to being complete or anything like that. But a mailbag question came in, and you can always be in the mailbag wherever you're listening to or watching this show. YouTube comments, hit me up on X, formerly known as Twitter. If you want priority access and all sorts of other perks, go join the flock over at Subtext. But this question came in from Nick. So question, What are we to make of the fact that Oregon not only has a small 25 class, but today they also lost the commitment of a second 2025 player because they had a wide receiver decommit previously as well, and they have since added when that, I honestly forgot the name of the kid who decommitted, but they since had Cooper Perry, the 4-star wideout from Arizona, commit on the heels of Rashad Samples coming over from Arizona State. But I look at the recruiting calendar, Brian, and the last couple of years covering Oregon recruiting on this show, most of the class has been built up in, May, certainly a little, but June, July, August has kind of felt like the time where, I don't know, just guesstimating here, 80% of your 2025 recruiting class gets built out. Is that all anyone should make of Oregon's relatively small numbers right now?
Yeah, June 20th to June 25th. That's every year it's going to be the same. That's the third weekend has been completed for official visits. Oregon and every other school will get a lot of answers. Most of the kids are going to visit between May 31st and June 21st for their OVs, right after all the kids decide. It's just a big wave. It's a tidal wave. So Oregon's in the same boat as everybody else.
Yeah, and I think the class is going to look a lot different than it does right now. You got 6 commits, and only one of them is on the defensive side of the ball. Or actually, now it's down to 5 commits with Thompson taking his name off the board there. But you got 3 receivers, a quarterback in Achilles Smith Jr., and an edge in Matthew Johnson, we've talked about here on the show before, who you like. And I mean, that's just not going to sustain itself. I don't think that ratio of players will sustain itself. At some point, I don't know when. We've talked about names on the show before, like Nasir Wyatt out in California, who is an explosive player coming off the edge that Oregon's certainly in the mix for, and there are going to be other names in the class as well. But that ratio of 4 out of your 5 players being on the offensive side of the ball, that's not going to sustain. And at some point, I don't necessarily know when, but at some point, Brian, I'd expect Oregon to go on a run of, hey, you just saw 4 commitments in the last week, and 3 or all 4 of them are on the defensive side of the ball.
That's just recruiting right there, too. It's weird how that happens. Sometimes teams will get 4 or 5 in a row on one side of the ball, and you're like, why is that? And I don't think it's anything other than just pot luck one way or the other. I wouldn't put a lot of stock in, especially with Dan and how much he likes recruiting defensive guys. I agree. I don't think that trend will continue all that well. But aside from that, again, all the commitments will take place late May, early June, and you'll see it go back and forth. That's about it.
Yeah, and it reminds me a little bit of the NFL draft. There was a run on corners in, I think, the second round. It was like Cooper DeJean came off the board, and then 3 corners were taken right after him. Like that sort of stuff can happen. So to answer your question, Nick, don't put too much stock in there being only 5 commits, because only 5 commits still a top 25 class right now, because everybody else is in the same process where they're very early in the recruiting cycle. Last week was Oregon spring game, and there were a couple guys who I've talked about here on the show before that I want Brian's thoughts on, because I thought they had outstanding games.